One more move, and you are dead." The voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Marcus Stone froze, cold concrete beneath his feet, the shower room empty except for him and the shadow holding a shank. The kid's hand shook, metal glinting under the flickering light. There was no killer's confidence, only raw terror. The old man said nothing. He let his towel drop to the wet floor. The sound echoed off the tiles like a judge's gavel. "I am not your enemy," Marcus said calmly, eyes locked on the weapon. "You already made yourself one," the kid gasped, backing toward the wall. Marcus saw the bruises on his ribs, fresh. The kind guards pretend not to notice. This was not a predator. This was prey. The silence shattered with the slam of a metal door echoing through the cell block. The kid jerked his head toward the sound. For just a second, Marcus saw something worse than fear on his face. The certainty that someone was coming for him. The old man understood then. Prison had not given him peace. It had put him in the middle of a war he thought he had left behind. Before you find out what Marcus did and who was hunting that terrified kid, subscribe, leave your like, and comment what country you are listening from. I love knowing. Now, stay until the end, because what was about to begin was more than survival. It was a reckoning written in blood and concrete. The silence stretched between them like razor wire. Water dripped from a broken pipe. The creak of footsteps overhead broke the tension. Marcus did not move, not an inch. He had seen that look before, the look of a man who was not fighting to win, but just to see tomorrow. But he had also seen liars. Too many of them. "Lower the shank," Marcus said firmly, without threat. "I am not working for them." The kid's jaw tightened. "And why would I believe you? Everyone here has a price." Marcus studied him carefully. The boy's hands were scarred from kitchen work, not knife fights, no tattoos marking gang affiliation, no calluses from weapon handling. The grip was desperate, untrained. "Because if I wanted you dead, you would not have made it to the showers," Marcus replied coldly. "And because those bruises tell me you are not dangerous, you are just marked." Neither man breathed for 5 seconds. Then the young inmate slowly lowered the shank. His legs gave out and he collapsed against the tile wall. Marcus approached cautiously, still watching for a trap. He lifted the kid's shirt. Burn marks on the back. Recent. Cigarette torture. Someone wanted information. "Who did this to you?" Marcus finally asked. "Warden Kross," the kid whispered. "They said I stole from the contraband ring, but it was him running it. I just saw the wrong thing at the wrong time." Marcus felt ice flood his veins. Kross. He knew that name, a corrupt warden who had been a dirty detective years ago, the same cop who had looked the other way when Marcus's old crew ran the East Side. He stared at the kid a moment longer, then made his decision. Without a word, he pulled the young man to his feet and guided him toward the corner cell Marcus paid guards to keep empty. Inside, the air smelled of rust and old soap. Marcus set a shiv on the metal shelf and opened a hidden pack of cigarettes. Smoke. "Tell me your name." "Danny Reeves," he answered, voice barely there. Clang. A baton struck the bars outside, so loud the walls seemed to shake. Marcus looked through the slot. 3 guards approaching, black uniforms, no name tags. "You have company, Danny," the old man said quietly, gripping his shiv. "And it looks like they are not here for count." That evening the cell became a trap. And as the lights dimmed, Marcus and Danny were about to discover they were not just fighting for their lives, but for the truth. Shadows moved like wolves down the corridor. 3 guards advanced slowly, batons tapping against bars in rhythm. The sound of control, of inevitability. Marcus watched from behind the cell door, shiv hidden in his palm, old instincts roaring back to life. "Do not fight yet," Danny said, crouched in the corner, face pale but eyes awake. "If they open that door, talking will not help," Marcus replied. The young man shook his head. "These are not regular guards. They work for Kross directly. If they kill me, it will not be about contraband. It will be about what I know." Marcus narrowed his eyes. He recognized that playbook, men who cleaned up loose ends so the system could keep rotting in peace. "What does Kross have on you?" Crack. A baton smashed against the bars. Marcus rolled behind the bunk, dragging Danny with him. The metal frame screeched. A second impact shattered the light bulb. The guards had arrived. "Talk fast, kid," Marcus hissed through the darkness. "Why does Kross want you silent?" Danny coughed, blood on his lip from biting down too hard. "Records. Proof that the warden smuggles drugs, sells protection, has inmates killed. I worked in the records office. When I found the ledger, crack." Another baton struck. They framed me as a thief. Marcus understood instantly. The old man gripped his shiv, waited for the first silhouette to appear at the door, and when it did, he struck fast. The guard screamed and stumbled backward, hand clutching a bleeding arm. The other two separated, flanking the cell. Danny, hands shaking, grabbed a metal tray from the floor. "In case you still doubt my story," he said through gritted teeth. Marcus barely smiled. "Never doubted. I just needed to know what we are dying for." He lunged again. Crack! The second guard went down hard against the bars. "Now I know, and it is worth it." The lights went out across the entire block. Emergency reds kicked in, bathing everything in crimson. When they thought they had survived the first wave, a new sound froze them. Footsteps behind the cell wall. Too many to be just two men. And a voice Marcus had not heard in 8 years. Silence returned. But it was not calm. It was the prelude to hell. Marcus kept the shiv ready, breathing through his nose. Every sound in the cell block amplified. Distant shouting, metal scraping, the hum of the ventilation system. Danny leaned against the bunk, checking his makeshift weapon. A tray with a sharpened edge. Barely lethal, but better than nothing. "There are not 3, he whispered. "There are at least 6. Marcus nodded without looking at him. "I know. Hear those boots. 2 sets are steel-toed. Riot squad. Someone is coming heavy." Outside, shadows gathered near the guard station. A flashlight beam swept across the floor, projecting elongated figures on the cracked concrete. Suddenly, a deep voice boomed through the corridor. "Come out, Stone. The warden wants to see you breathing one last time before you disappear." Marcus's knuckles went white around the shiv. "So Kross remembers me, too." Danny looked at him, shocked. "You know him." "We crossed paths years ago," the old man said, shoving the bunk toward the door. "I testified against his crew when I took my plea deal. Guess he never forgot." The smell of gasoline drifted into the cell. Marcus's eyes widened. "They are going to burn us out." Without hesitation, he grabbed a blanket and stuffed it under the door crack. Then he smashed the small mirror on the wall and angled a shard to see outside. Crack, crack. Batons hammered the bars, making the whole structure vibrate. Marcus grabbed the metal tray from Danny and flung it through the slot. It hit someone. A howl of pain echoed. Crack, crack, crack. The riot began. Battens against flesh, bodies hitting concrete. Marcus shoved Danny toward the air vent in the corner. "Get in there and do not make a sound." "And you," the young man protested, "I will buy you time. Old or not, I still know how to hunt rats." Danny wanted to argue, but Marcus had already kicked the bunk aside. He grabbed his shiv and stood at the door, waiting. Shadows moved between the cells. A voice called from the darkness. "Marcus Stone. Kross wants your head, alive or dead." Marcus aimed through the slot, slashed at the first hand that reached through, and the scream echoed like thunder in the belly of the prison. The old man thought he had bought them time, but what he did not know was that Kross was not just sending guards. He was coming himself, with a full squad, and a personal grudge that had festered for 8 years. Morning count arrived stained with blood. The cell block looked like a battlefield. Marcus, covered in sweat and bruises, stared at the bodies of guards who had tried to breach during the night. He felt no pride, only exhaustion, and the old familiar weight of knowing this was far from over. Inside the vent, Danny crawled out, coughing dust. "Did they leave?" he rasped. Marcus shook his head. "No, they are regrouping, waiting for daylight so they can see us better." The young man tried to stand, but his ribs screamed. "Kross will not stop. When he wants someone gone, they vanish without a trace." Marcus tightened the torn fabric around his bleeding knuckles. "Then he will have to come do it himself." As if the universe heard him, the sound of boots echoed. Not 3 guards, not 6. A dozen men marched down the corridor, and at the front, a man in a crisp suit, gray hair slicked back, eyes like frozen steel. Warden Kross. Marcus stepped to the cell door, fearless. "It has been years since I have seen your face, Warden," he called out, voice steady. "And it has been years since I have awaited the pleasure of erasing yours from existence," Kross replied smoothly. The 2 men locked eyes through the bars. Between them was not just steel. There was history, betrayal, and unmarked graves. "You know the kid is telling the truth," Marcus said without lowering his weapon. "You run this place like your own kingdom, sell drugs, sell lives." Kross smiled coldly. "Truth is written by whoever survives, Stone. You taught me that, or did you forget? You flipped on your own crew to save your skin, left them to rot while you played saint." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I refused to kill a federal witness. There is a difference." "Is there?" Kross laughed. "Tell that to the men doing life because you testified." A shiv suddenly flew through the air. Clang! It grazed Marcus's shoulder, tearing fabric. The old man ducked, rolled behind the bunk, and grabbed his weapon. Crack! Crack! The guards rushed forward, swinging batons and fists. Danny fired the sharpened tray through the slot, catching one guard in the throat. The echo of impact mixed with shouts and the groan of metal until smoke from a gas canister covered everything. Through that haze, the warden's voice rang out again. "You cannot hide, Stone. This time there will be no deals." When the smoke cleared, Marcus saw something on the floor. A photograph. Faded, torn. It showed a younger Marcus in a suit standing beside Kross in a police uniform. Both smiling, brothers in arms. Kross was not just coming to kill him, he was coming to erase the past, and Danny was about to learn who he had really been hiding with. Smoke still hung in the air when Marcus saw the photograph among the debris. He crouched, picked it up, turned it in his scarred fingers. 2 men, young, confident, partners, Detective Kross and Marcus Stone, enforcer for the Quintero family. His heart clenched. He had burned that photograph 15 years ago, the night he decided to testify and walk away from the life. Danny watched from the corner, confusion on his bruised face. "What is that?" "A promise I thought I had buried," Marcus replied, tucking the photo into his pocket. But Danny had seen the image. His eyes went wide. "Wait. You worked with Kross. with him. Marcus did not answer immediately. He checked his shiv, wiped the blood off on his shirt. "That man is dead. Has been for over a decade," he finally said. "Not to Kross, he is not." Danny limped forward, wincing. "I have heard the stories. The enforcer who turned state's witness. The one who put half the Quintero crew behind bars rather than kill a Fed." He paused. "They said you were a coward, but the stories never said Kross wanted you dead for it." Marcus looked at him then. Really looked. "And what do you think now, kid, knowing who I am, or who I was?" Danny met his gaze, steady despite the pain. "I think you are the only man in here who could save me, and I think Kross knows it too." Outside, the guards regrouped in the hallway, waiting for orders. The fluorescent lights buzzed, heat rising. Marcus knew they would not survive another assault. "We need to move," he said, adjusting the cloth wrapped around his fist. Danny tried to stand, but his body refused. "I cannot run, Marcus," the old man sighed. "Then I will draw them off. When I pull them toward the yard, you crawl through the vents to the chapel. There is a priest there, Father Gomez. Tell him Marcus sent you. Give him that ledger you hid." The young man shook his head. "I am not leaving you." Marcus stared at him hard. "It is not a choice, boy. It is survive or die twice. And I did not keep you alive this long to watch Kross put a shiv in your spine." He moved toward the cell door like a man walking into an execution. The corridor stretched ahead like a tunnel to hell. From the upper tier, Kross watched him step into the open. "There you are, Stone," the warden said with an icy smile. Marcus raised his shiv. "And this time I am not taking orders from you." Crack! The sound of impact echoed through the block, and chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward. Inmates rioted in response. In seconds, the entire prison exploded into fire and fury. While Marcus fought toward the yard to give Danny time, an unseen strike hit his ribs. The old man fell hard, and when he opened his eyes, he saw a shadow approaching through the smoke. The walk was familiar. Too familiar. The riot still raged when Marcus hit the concrete floor. Shouts, screams, the clang of metal on metal. He gasped, clutching his ribs, tasting copper. Blood filled his mouth. Through the chaos, a figure approached on foot. Slow, deliberate. It was not a guard, not Kross. A man in an orange jumpsuit, tall, broad shoulders, a limp in his left leg. But there was something in the way he moved. A hitch every third step. A pause that Marcus had seen before. His breath stopped. "Do not move," he said, trying to raise his shiv, but his voice cracked. "Tell me who you are." The stranger stopped a few feet away. "Someone who has been waiting 8 years to find you, Stone." His voice was deep, scarred by time and cigarettes. Marcus knew that voice, had heard it in nightmares since the night everything went wrong. "Cannot be," he whispered. The man reached into his pocket slowly, deliberately, pulled out something small. He tossed it toward Marcus. It landed on the bloody concrete between them. A gold lighter, engraved initials, VQ Victor Quintero. Marcus's hands shook. "Victor." The man pulled back his hood. Time stopped. Victor Quintero stood before him, face half destroyed by burn scars running from scalp to jawline. The left eye was milky, blind, but the right eye burned with something between recognition and hatred. "Thought you had seen the last of me that night," Victor said quietly. "They told me you were dead," the report said. The report said what Kross wanted it to say. Victor's hand moved toward a hidden shiv. "He pulled me out of that warehouse, patched me up, taught me something valuable, Marcus." "What is that?" That loyalty is just another word for weakness." Marcus slowly lowered his weapon. Understanding crashed over him. "He turned you. He gave me a choice. Hunt the man who destroyed our family or spend the rest of my life in a hole." Victor's voice cracked. "You testified against us, Marcus. You put my brother in the ground and me in hell. I testified to stop a murder. The feds had evidence. I chose prison over death row, chose or sold out." Victor raised his shiv. "Kross promised me early release if I bring you to him breathing, and I need that freedom more than I need closure." Marcus did not reply. His gaze was that of a man who had been betrayed too many times to be surprised anymore. The smoke thickened around them. Two old criminals. Two ghosts from the same blood-soaked past. Face to face. "I am sorry it ended like this, brother," Marcus whispered. "So am I." Crack. The sound of impact thundered through the cell block. One figure collapsed, one stood. When the smoke cleared, Marcus stood over Victor Quintero's body, a shiv through the heart that no scar could heal. But there was no time for grief. In the distance, boots marched in formation. Kross was coming. And this time there would be no more ghosts between them. The emergency lights cast everything in deep red. Marcus walked with effort, ribs screaming, shiv loose in his bloody hand. Behind him lay Victor Quintero, wrapped in a stolen blanket, his oldest friend, his greatest regret. The prison was silent now, but that silence was heavier than the riot. Reaching the catwalk above the yard, he saw the inevitable. Kross, surrounded by a dozen guards in full riot gear, standing in the center of the basketball court, right where 8 years ago Marcus had first refused to kill for him. The old man smiled bitterly, poetic, dying where it all started. He descended the metal stairs without fear. Each step echoed his past, each breath a confession he would never speak aloud. When he stopped across from Kross, the wind from the ventilation system blew hard, dragging dust and ash. "I thought you would hide like the rat you are," Kross said with a smug grin. "Especially after Victor. You turned him into a weapon and aimed him at me. That is on you, not me." "Is it?" Kross stepped forward slowly. "I simply gave him what you took away. Purpose, direction, a chance to matter. You gave him hate. Same thing." Both men stood still, 10 feet apart, hands near their weapons. The world seemed to stop. Not even the guards moved. Marcus could see it in Kross's eyes now. Not just arrogance, not just rage, something deeper, something broken. "You are not doing this for justice, are you? You are doing it because I was right to testify, and you have spent 8 years trying to prove I was not." Kross's smile died. His jaw clenched. "For every deal you destroyed," Marcus whispered. "For everyone who got in my way," Kross responded. The ventilation stopped. A second of perfect silence. Their eyes met across the blood-stained concrete. Kross burned with fury, with desperation, with the rage of a man who knew he had become the monster he once hunted. Marcus's eyes were already at peace. Then thunder. Crack. Both struck. Kross's shiv tore into Marcus's side. Marcus's blade found its mark. Center mass. The warden stumbled backward, hand clutching his chest, dark blood spreading across the white shirt under his jacket. He looked down at the wound, then up at Marcus. Something like disbelief in his face. "You were supposed to be weak," he gasped. "You always chose mercy." Marcus lowered his weapon, breathing hard through the pain. "Not today." The warden fell to his knees, then forward onto the concrete. The old man stood there bleeding as the guards watched in silence. None moved. None intervened. After a long moment, Marcus turned and walked toward the infirmary. Weeks later, the prison returned to its routine. But one inmate sat in the chapel with a young man beside him, an old enforcer with a cleared record and a debt finally paid. The war was over. Now came the hardest part, living with what it cost. Dawn broke over the prison walls like pale fire. The yard filled with golden light. Marcus Stone sat on a bench outside the chapel, arm in a sling, eyes on the distant horizon. Each breath came easier now, no longer weighed down by the past. Danny Reeves sat beside him, ribs wrapped but healing. The kid had testified. The ledger had been found. Kross's operation was dismantled. Investigations were ongoing. That knowledge should have brought satisfaction. Instead, it just felt quiet. The old man stared at the chain-link fence, separating them from freedom. Beyond it, the world continued without them. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the photograph. Faded, torn. Two young men who thought they were invincible. He looked at it for a long time, remembering the lost, the betrayed, the choices that could never be undone. He remembered Victor's lighter, buried now with its owner. For the first time in years, Marcus's chest did not feel tight. The weight he had carried, guilt, rage, regret was finally settling. Not gone, never gone, but lighter. He held the photograph one last time, feeling the paper thin and fragile in his scarred palm. Then he tore it in half. The pieces fell to the concrete, carried by the morning breeze toward the fence. The old man leaned back against the cold wall. His reflection in a nearby window showed a tired man, aged by violence, marked by loss. But his eyes were clear, steady, the gaze of someone who survived everything and finally made peace with it. He breathed deeply. The air smelled of coffee from the mess, haul and rain from the night before, endings and beginnings. Looking up at the sky, he murmured, "It is enough now." The wind answered with a soft whistle through the fence, almost human, stirring the dirt near the chapel steps. Somewhere in the yard, a basketball bounced, life continuing. Danny stood, offered Marcus a hand. The old man took it and rose slowly. He gave one last look at the torn photograph pieces tumbling across the concrete, the past finally released, and turned toward the chapel door. He left no deep marks. The wind scattered them away, as if the prison itself wanted to keep his secret. Only the echo of the morning bell remained, ringing out across the walls. A sound of time served and debts paid. If you enjoyed this prison story, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and tell me what country you are listening from. Every story you share keeps alive the memory of those who fought for redemption in the darkest places.